Hello, this is Luke with Sound on Sound. We're at the NAMM show in Anaheim, and I'm joined by Anssi at the Amphion booth, who's going to tell us a little bit about their latest monitors.
Thank you, Luke. Yes, we're launching Amphion 125A here at the show. The first question that I'm pondering, what should this A stand for? Because maybe it shouldn't be an active, because that kind of leads an idea into the way that maybe in a similar fashion, like all the modern actives, it has unnecessarily complicated single path, unneeded ADA conversion, heavy-handed application of DSP, and it has none of that. In the same way as we and all of Amphion products, we are striving for the shortest, purest possible signal path, because I believe that is the way for maximum amount of transparency. So as always with Amphion, we start with acoustics. Therefore, we are showing this open box. It's a relatively complicated, totally separated dual enclosure where the tweeter and the mids are in a one enclosure, which is isolated from the closed box where the 10-inch flow-through woofer is. Very important to notice, and I don't understand why, if you're an active manufacturer, why would you use ancient old tricks of porting your box or using a transmission line, because they're not needed today anymore. So, because we have the technology to produce full range signal out of the closed box in a and this is, of course, has always been the best, most optimal way of reproducing bass. It was like that when the speakers were refrigerator size, but because when they started shrinking due to whatever reason, wives didn't like them or they were expensive to ship, then we needed to come up with these gimmicks or tricks of porting or using the transmission line to make more output out of the shrinking box. Not needed anymore. The same way, again, going back, is that this doesn't have an issue, which I think all the modern active has. We don't house the electrical components inside this vibrating box. Maybe if you can hold this for a while, because they are actually this ventilated, very solid enclosure. If you have a go with that, it's pretty substantial box. And the reason for that is that we can then keep the micro level vibration away from the components and isolate that from the box. Okay. Also, because normally, of course, we see it later on, normally it sits together with the speaker, but it is possible now for the first time ever to soffit mount an Amphion, because you can remove this, soffit mount it, use the boundary control in the speaker to actually set it up in such a way that it compensates for either the proximity of the wall or soffit mounting applications. We can maybe go there. And of course, it has all the typical Amphion characteristics, low crossover point to the tweeter, so that we get this two driver combination behaving as a point source. The crossover to the woofer is 100, so we can use that proximity control without harming the mid-range. What we can do now, because it's amplified or active, we can actually use all the good sides of active design, which are being able to optimize all the amp modules to each driver, using steep filters so that we can actually reduce the output after those frequencies, what the 10 can produce anyway. And maybe most importantly, introduce a protection circuit, which of course we couldn't do in a passive domain. But now we have a protection circuit which is not actually in the signal path. It only comes into play when the output levels are creeping into that level where it can start hurting your gear and maybe more importantly, your ear. Because this is, of course, something that we always try to remind our customers about. You can always replace a unit, but you will not be able to replace your hearing, because funnily enough, in Europe nowadays, if you're exposed to 85 dB levels, constant levels at your working place, you need to wear hearing protection. Yet in this industry, for some reason, people go to this Fletcher-Monson curve and say, oh, our hearing is most linear at 85. I need to do 85 all day long. this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And you shouldn't believe a word of that. There's no mastering engineer who are supposed to have the best years in the business who masters at 80, 85 dB all the time. They don't do that. So what you can actually do with the product like this, which is also where we always push the acoustic design and where we can keep it therefore electrically very simple, you can lower the listening levels. You still have all the clarity. The balance is correct, but you will get mixes that are more constant throughout the day. Plus, you will add years and years to your work life. And this is something you should really pay attention to. Yeah, I think we see the big potential for a compact full range production rooms for any, let's say, modern music where a lot of the beef is in the two lowest octaves. And it's important to be able to craft it in a way that you have the maximum amount of energy, but in a way that it stays in control all the time, in a car, in any playback device. Good example of what is possible to do with an Amphion system is the Beyonce's new album, where Stuart White did a stupendously good job in really punching or packing the lows with a very high amount of energy, but in a way that it will still stay intact in playback. Yes, in addition to two-channel work, I see a big potential for movie composing, for example, where it's very important to have three-dimensionality, true full range information, post, commercial facilities where, of course, this protection circuitry is important. But yeah, we start shipping in August. The price is set up at 14,900 per pair in US and also in euros with a 20% VAT. And yeah, looking forward to that. It's quite exciting.